everybody. Thanks for joining us for our latest Train Like a Trooper podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Stewart, along with my co-host, Lieutenant Mark Southall. And today we have a special guest, Lieutenant Dustin Thornton, who is a member of our Traffic Homicide Unit. And Lieutenant Thornton, let's start by talking about our Traffic Homicide Unit and what you guys do.
We are tasked with investigating serious bodily injury collisions and fatal collisions within the Oklahoma Highway Patrol's jurisdiction. And that's not limited to just on the roads. It's, we'll be called to ATV crashes or things like that at certain places or on county roads or private property if somebody's riding them in the field, or not necessarily our whole responsibility, but we do get calls for those.
And that's kind of the things that we're talking about today. Is we've had kind of an alarming number of ATV and UTV fatal crashes just so far this year. And Lieutenant Southall, I know you've been looking into the numbers, so tell us what you found out.
Yeah, so far this year we've had 17 UTV, ATV crashes. 4 of those are ATVs, 13 of them are UTVs. And to clarify, UTV is a side-by-side. Basically, we're averaging 1 death every 11 and a half days this year in 2025, and we're expected to far exceed the average of what we've been seeing, which is 24 to 26 crashes or fatalities a year in the past few years. We're looking to, at this point, we could be up to 35, 40 if we continue on the path that we're on.
And that's kind of why we wanted to do this podcast, to kind of let people know, hey, this is happening, and maybe some information that they need to prevent them or their loved ones from this happening to them.
Right. Yeah.
So what are you seeing in these fatal crashes that you guys, ATV, UTV crashes that you guys are investigating?
A lot of it is just, they're built for fun. Like the four-wheeler, the popularity of the four-wheeler, 20 years ago. They're built as a recreational vehicle to go to areas like, what's the name of that place? Little Sahara, and put some sand tires on there and just go and ride and jump and do some things. They have roll cages and they have seat belts, and I think a lot of what we're seeing is these UTVs are now the craze, and if not operated correctly, they're dangerous. They're capable of way more than the old four-wheelers were. A lot of people would get four-wheelers for hunting, and that's what you would see for farm use and hunting and things like that. And now these UTVs, they don't even have racks on them. They are miniature dune buggies, really, and they're being now. Since April of 21, now they're, with under certain circumstances or qualifications or, by law, they can be operated on the road with their off-road suspension and, their low air tire requirements, and they're just not built for road use. And it even says that, after some research that Lieutenant Southall and I, came to recently, that there's even warnings that these aren't to be operated on the road. They're not built for the road. Mm-hmm. And you see them all over the place now, driving through town. And I'm not trying to get to a place where we're just like, no, you can't, if you want to drive them on the road, fine. But they don't look like a car. They don't handle like a car. And it's these other drivers too that you see, they don't recognize them as what they are. Now there are certain places they can't go. Like, I don't think they can go on an interstate or a U.S. highway, or even I can't remember, maybe a state highway even. But on these county roads and things like that, we're seeing. But back to your question, we're seeing kids driving these things that don't have the proper training, and they're not even old enough to, by law, to be. Now, on private property, there's really nothing. There's nothing we can do. It's somebody's private property, and if they want to go and drive a side-by-side in a creek, then go drive a side-by-side in a creek. I've done it. But when these kids get a hold of them and they figure out that they're way more powerful when you buckle the seatbelt, they, maybe they buckle the seatbelt behind them or they buckle the seatbelt around them, but still these things are capable of traveling at, 50, 60 miles an hour.
Some even faster than that.
Some even faster. I mean, these machines, just seeing, being an avid Facebook marketplace guy, I see them on for sale all the time, and they're selling for $30,000 and $40,000 for a utility vehicle, and that's fine. If you want to buy one, but there needs to be more responsibility in the proper training, and I say training, I'm not talking about a class, but I'm talking about supervision, or really figuring out how to handle them with the safety equipment. Nobody likes to wear a helmet. They're hot, but but they're there for a reason, just like the seat belts and just like the roll bars. And if it's a 2-seater UTV, only 2 people need to be in it, not 6, riding in and out and on, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that could be, that more priority needs to be put on, and I don't know that that the state government can really say, hey, like it needs to be with the owners, and making sure that everybody knows how to drive them before they're out cut loose on their own.
Yeah. Do you think it's kind of talking about people don't understand them, like they just approach it as, I'm just going out to have some fun. When you get in your car, you have a healthy respect for that. You realize something can happen, but people just kind of, it's like, okay, this is just fun. We're going to have fun. And they don't, like you said, they don't treat it with that respect or think about what could happen, or that these are as powerful as vehicles in some cases.
Sure. And I think that one of the main things that we're sitting here talking about right now is with respect to kids, because there's a lot of kids being hurt by these machines that, and I understand it. None of it is intentional, but I don't know that kids are able to understand how to, I'm teaching a 15-year-old right now how to drive a car, and it was rough in the beginning, because she's never really driven, she wouldn't even drive a go-kart. Mm-hmm. So when she got behind the wheel of that car, it was kind of a new experience of, how to turn, how to, how much brake to push, how much gas to push, and just the movement of the vehicle by itself. And these are no different. And golf carts are the same way. There's people that we worked several crashes on golf carts, where they're being driven in a manner that they shouldn't be, and they're not designed to be driven in. And now these UTVs, they're designed, these new ones, they're designed for jumps and, all kinds of things.
When we talk about the design being off, specifically what makes that design, that off-road design, not compatible for driving on the roadway and how we normally safely drive?
Well, I would say that the suspension, number one, is a lot softer because they're made to be off-road. And then you have the big knobby tires that are on there. You have the weight distribution is distributed in a certain manner to where, like if you're driving, so everybody's been at the grocery store when they're pushing their cart and their kid wants to sit on the front. When they put all that weight on the front, there's no weight on the back, and you can't hardly steer. Well, that's the same thing as when these UTVs get overloaded. If they get overloaded on the back, their steering gets loose, and they're not able to steer. The steering doesn't react like it should. If you turn the steering wheel, it doesn't react the same way when they're overloaded like that. So a lot of it is just teaching these young people how to operate these things safely, and having that conversation with them when it's purchased or when it's obtained or something like that, just like they would a four-wheeler. We remember back in the day when Honda had the three-wheelers that everybody was getting hurt on. I know I've dumped one over a few times, and you figure out real quick that you can't turn it real sharp or it'll turn over on you, and then they quit making them, and then enter the four-wheeler, and they were a lot safer. They weren't as unstable as the three-wheeler, but now we're to the UTVs that are very, very fast and have a lot of power. And again, giving young people a machine that has so much power is dangerous because they don't understand it.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of conversation needs to happen. But there again, to operate them on the road, you should be 16 anyway. And I don't have the stats for how many under 16 are getting hurt, but I think a lot of it has to do with you can't, like we were talking earlier, you can't get your motorcycle license and then go buy a Hayabusa and expect for things to.
Yeah, we've got some statistics that Mike sent us that we talked to earlier. And he was saying that 7 of the 17 involve children under the age of 18 so far this year, with the youngest being a 2-year-old female.
Wow.
Some other stats that he sent us: over the last 15 years, Oklahoma's been ranked in the top 10 nationally for deaths involving off-road vehicles, ATVs, UTVs. And one of the interesting stats that he sent us was that in St. Francis Hospital here in Tulsa, they average about 2 patients every week with some ATV side-by-side related injury, serious injury.
Wow.
Yeah, and like I said, this topic is not just UTVs. It's the electric bicycles that you see everywhere that everybody is buying because that maybe have a suspended driver's license because they don't have to have a driver's license to drive them on the road. But yeah, they're still on the road. Then they're driven at night. They're driven in the middle of the road when you're supposed to drive them to as far right as you can. But it's not just the UTVs. Like we've seen these little like they're actual bicycles that have a weed eater motor on them or some kind of chainsaw motor or something like that, to where you can pedal or you can fire it up and you have a little gas powered engine to get you around town. And some of them, 30 miles an hour and things like that. But so it's not just specific or nailed down to these UTVs. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm picking on the UTVs because it's all of it. The mini bikes, the electric bicycles, the electric scooters, they're all dangerous to be on the road because cars are a lot bigger. So if something happens, you're more likely to be injured if you're struck by a vehicle or if you are in a collision with a vehicle, and because you don't have all the protections. These UTVs, they don't have airbags. They have seatbelts.
Right.
Seatbelts and a canopy. It's kind of like an old Jeep. But they have a roll bar but they're just not designed for road use like they're being used for.
How do we normally see fatalities in these UTVs? Are they typically rollovers, 2 vehicle collisions? What are we kind of seeing across the state?
From what I'm seeing, they're I would say that they're more of a rollover and no occupant protection. And when they start to roll, appendages start to come out outside of the roll bars, and even if you're wearing your seatbelt, that's going to keep your torso towards the seat. I'm not sure if the seatbelts lock like passenger cars do, to where once it starts rolling, it'll lock you in place. Like the pretensioners will fire and lock you in place. I don't know if they do that, but let's just say you are wearing your seatbelt and you start to roll. Your arms are going to go towards the outside, or toward wherever you're rolling. It's going to go. Your appendages are going to start coming outside of the chassis, I guess, and I'm talking about not just arms and legs potentially, but your head and neck come out, and then you get smashed by the roll bar on your head or your neck. That's kind of the big one, is that roll bar that's designed to keep it from crushing on you, and it does. But if you're not restrained, it's coming out of that chassis and getting to where that roll bar can get a hold of your neck or your head, or something like that.
And a lot of these rollovers that we're seeing are one vehicle rollovers from people not totally respecting the suspension, not respecting the low air pressure in the tires, not knowing how to safely operate these things, taking curves too fast.
Yeah, or just goofing around out in the field. And driving too fast and then trying to turn it, that's going to roll you over. Yeah. So it all goes back, a lot of it goes back to speed, driving them too fast during a turn or something like that. Very seldom is it just driving straight. And to be honest, I don't know that, I'm sure it has happened, but I can't think of off the top of my head where a passenger car, well, yes, I can too. So, there are passenger car, two vehicle collisions too, but a lot of them, what you see is the UTV rolling, or it's the only vehicle in the collision.
Yeah. So April 2021, this was enacted into law that UTVs can be operated on the roadway under certain stipulations that are registered. And I'm just going to touch on a couple of those. Registered 16-year-old driver with a license, at least 16 years old and above. How has the statistics on fatalities increased since 2021?
Well, and that was kind of some of the data that I was trying to get. I don't know. It seems that we've seen a spike in UTV crashes, and I don't know if that's because of the law change or if that's because of the popularity. There's just more UTVs being purchased and used and things like that. So I don't know, without looking at the actual data prior to and then after 2021, I don't know. It just seems to be kind of more in your face right now, because it seems like every week we're responding, or we're getting a phone call or something. There's a UTV crash or an ATV crash somewhere.
It seems like we've been seeing them on streets and on private property. Right.
And like here in Tulsa, Mark and I were both supervisors here in the metro for a little while, and these mini bikes would do takeovers on the road. Like, they're not street legal. They're not supposed to be operated on the road. And yet, 25 or 50 of them would get together and then block a road off, driving 5 miles an hour, just because they can. And then there's been some of those crash. Usually when law enforcement tries to stop them, they run and then they end up crashing. So, they're not supposed to be on the road.
Yeah. What do you think is the most important thing that parents need to know? Let's say they already have one of these vehicles and they allow their children to use it, or they're thinking about purchasing one. What would you say to parents? What are the things they need to consider?
Well, I mean, number one, I would recommend that they understand that these machines, these UTVs specifically, are not the hunting four-wheelers of the past. Even though those are powerful as well, they're not as powerful as these machines. And I would strongly recommend, if they're going to let kids drive them, that they take out and teach them to drive it just like they would a car when they turn 15. Get used to it and let the kids understand how it turns, how it, and ride with them. I would not turn my kids loose on a UTV by themselves.
And let's clarify, we're talking about on private property. Anybody less than 16 years of age can't be driving one on the road.
Correct.
Right, yeah, that's unlawful.
Yeah.
But does it happen? Sure. Not just with UTVs, with four-wheelers, with golf carts, with everything. But specifically, these UTVs are very dangerous for someone that doesn't respect it. And, teach your kids to respect the power that it has. And without driving recklessly, show them how powerful they are. And, you get on there with one of them and you show them how powerful they are, obviously without, with you yourself as the parent understanding how powerful they are and how to drive them. But, you'll be the coolest parent around, showing them how much power they have, because for them it'll be fun. But, that also comes with having that conversation and just really communication with your kids. These are dangerous. They have, yes, they're fun. We have it because we want to have some fun, but you also need to understand the limitations and your own limitations on driving, because there's people out there that have been driving four-wheelers since they were old enough to stand up, and that's great. And there's these UTVs or these side-by-sides. They make them for kids, for private property use, obviously, but they're small, they're little, and they're dialed way down, just like you could buy mini four-wheelers for your kids when they were young, and they won't, they're not real powerful. It's just something for them to scoot around on and have fun. And they do the same thing with these. But when you start getting into the four-seaters and the high CC at UTVs, they become very dangerous, and injury can happen very quickly. So really, the message for the parents are, just train your kids how to drive them, and helmets, seat belts,
like we say with vehicles.
Elbows and knee pads aren't cool, but
And there's lots of safety programs out there to teach you how to ride these things. I know there are a lot of, say the dealerships offer, courses that you can go to. ATV Ride Safe Oklahoma is a great resource for this. I'll make sure I got that right before I tell you, but it is a great resource. They put a lot of trainings on throughout the state of Oklahoma, and ATV Ride Safe Oklahoma. Him and I both talked to Mike Knapp today, and we're thankful for the knowledge that he was able to share. But he's really the resident expert here in Oklahoma on this particular topic, and he has got some just unbelievable stats about how this has changed over the course of many years here in Oklahoma. But being that we're top 10 in the nation for fatalities in ATVs and UTVs, we've got to start doing something different.
Yeah.
It's for us to bring this topic up, we started recognizing a couple of months ago that our fatalities for 2025 were skyrocketing, and it was really a huge concern for us. So that's really why we wanted to bring you in today and talk to you about that, and maybe get some awareness out there for the dangers that lie around these things if they're not handled properly.
Yeah, and for the agencies that are listening, Mike was a presenter at the Highway Safety Conference this year, and Lieutenant Southall and I both missed his presentation, and we had planned to go, but we had another presentation come up, and but we talked to him a little bit this morning, and he's a wealth of knowledge, and there are a lot of programs that he's involved in that are free for kids, especially kids. Wasn't that right?
Yeah, he goes around to schools and brings actually ATVs to the school and teaches them how to operate them.
And he's even had, he was talking to us like, you put your kid in one of those, and then he said the kids go home and they teach their parents, or like Mr. Mike. He said, Mr. Mike said this, Mr. Mike said that. And I would just discourage from buying one and handing your kid the keys and say, here you go.
And like I said, we don't want to ruin anybody's fun. We understand they have a purpose, but we've seen some really heartbreaking tragedies around this, and no family wants to have to deal with that.
And they're really almost all avoidable, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part about it, is we don't need to lose these people.
Right.
Well, but we can say that with car collisions too.
Sure.
Yeah. Right.
Most of them are all preventable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You need to get kids in the mindset that safety can be cool.
Yeah, but with vehicle collisions, you're not dealing with 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds driving.
Yeah.
Driving a machine like these, but all of it, a lot of it is preventable. And I'm with you. I don't want to be. I don't want to be the fun police. You asked the question, do you think why do you think we're seeing that increase? And I don't know. Like I said, I think it's more of a combination of the law and a combination that these things are just popular now. And they're as popular as the four-wheelers were 10, 15 years ago.
Well, thank you, Lieutenant Thornton. We appreciate you sharing your knowledge on this, and we hope that this raises awareness and that people will really think about this before using these vehicles.
No problem.
All right.
No problem.